Today, we're here after receiving disappointing news yesterday from the governor that he vetoed S-230. As you know, House Republicans worked very hard to build a bipartisan consensus. We even spent the last hours of the session implementing changes that the governor requested because he threatened to veto the bill. We extended our deadline to suspend rules to accommodate that, because we knew how important this bill was to Vermonters, and we are here today to let Vermonters know how disappointed we are in the governor's choice to veto or ultimately kill this bill. But I also want to emphasize that the Democrats are framing this issue as a conflict between those who promote renewable energy and those who do not. This is not true. Republicans, Vermonters support green energy, but they also believe that people have a right to say where those projects will be sited. And this is why we're here today, because we worked so hard to build this consensus. We negotiated as far as anybody can negotiate to get a bill that was going to have any meaning. And what the governor wants is a bill that has no meaning, that does nothing but allow him and the speaker to drive around Vermont telling people that they fixed it and you will have a say. That is not true. So I want to explain the process to you, because I keep reading all kinds of things that we can do here on Thursday. That is not true either. There is a veto session that was scheduled at the end of the session. It said we will return on June 9th if the governor were to veto a bill. At this point, he vetoed two, H518 and S230. That means when we come back Thursday, and now I'm hearing that it's at 11 o'clock the House will convene, we will meet at 10 o'clock because we will caucus. The bill will go into the Senate, and the draft motion is, shall the Senate approve the bill because the governor has vetoed it. The response should be yes if you want to override, and no if you want to sustain it. That is the vote. There is no, oh, we can sustain it and modify it, or we can override and modify it. That's not true. If we override the bill, we can next session make technical corrections to the bill. If it is voted to sustain the veto, or the governor to sustain the veto, the bill is dead, which would require an entire new bill to be drafted, introduced, sent to committee, come back to the floor, sent to appropriations, come back to the floor, and for a vote. That is a multi-day process in the legislature. That's how the system is designed. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, if we were to suspend rules, that could be expedited. But I asked you, S-230 took the entire session to the end and beyond to develop language that we could all get along with, or agree with, a compromise. How can it be done in 2 hours and have people think it's correct, that there won't be other problems? That is not possible. We will not suspend rules to move any bill. Our vote is to override the governor, enact the bill that we compromised on, and then I promise we will work to make any technical corrections that need to be done in the next session. That is our plan. That is what we will come here on Thursday to do. Now, you've seen the governor's press release, I'm sure. And he talks about 4 provisions in law that would require this bill to be vetoed. I want you to know that I started hearing these rumors last week. The speaker actually called me. So I called Ledge Counsel and I said, tell me the truth. Tell me the legal. I'm not a lawyer. Tell me what this means in layman's terms so I can share it with our caucus members and with Vermonters. So they did, and I have, and if somebody wants to see it, I've got a legal opinion on those 4 things. I'm not going to share that. I do have a press statement I will give to all of you. Number 1, inadvertent omission from the conference report of the money to support local and regional energy planning. That is true. There wasn't any money in that bill, and that was inadvertent. You know how many times that happens in this building? That's what budget adjustment is about. This $300,000 could be funded by the Public Service Board and then returned in the Budget Adjustment Act. Number 1 issue, no issue. Number 2, requiring the notice of the CPG, Certificate of Public Good, to be recorded in the land records. There seems to be a concern that requiring the notice of the CPG creates a burden on marketable title. However, under case law, which exists on the laws, if there's a burden on the title, it would be created by the requirement to obtain a certificate of public good and the terms and the conditions of the CPG. The requirement in S-230 to record a notice of the CPG would not alter the liability or marketability of title issues that may arise from a failure to properly obtain. No issue. Number 2, no issue. Number 3, the governor points out, is directing that temporary rules on sound from wind generation facilities use the same process as for emergency rules. Well, guess what? Under Governor Shumlin, this has happened about 6 times in the last 3 years. This assertion has been made that constitutes a legal declaration that sound from wind generation constitutes an imminent peril to public health. This appears to give rise to fears of unintended consequences. The lawyer goes on, however, the language does not affirmatively state that sound from wind generation constitutes such a peril. It simply states that the rules are deemed to meet the standard. This represents a common formulation employed by the General Assembly when it seeks to have an agency perform rulemaking quickly, but the situation to be addressed does not necessarily meet the imminent peril standard. In addition, if sound from wind generation were thought to actually present an imminent peril, it would not have been necessary to deem the standard be met. So, another perspective from what the governor had to say is that this language relates only to rules that will be in place temporarily, and that long-term consequences created by this language, if any, could be addressed through an enactment next session. This is from Ledge Counsel. And then finally, the directing of the temporary rules on sound from wind generation. So the argument appears from the governor that the language would require all wind projects to meet a 10 decibel above ambient standard, and that projects could not do so without being, or would be encouraged to be sited at locations where there's already more ambient noise. However, this reading of language appears to be inconsistent with the language of a section indicating that the General Assembly did not require a one-size-fit-all standard, and that temporary rules may include A, standards that apply to all wind facilities, or B, a method for determining sound levels on a case-by-case basis, or C, standards that apply to one or more categories of wind facilities, such as small wind and large wind. So again, the governor is wrong. That is not true. So, why I read this stuff and why I think it's important for Vermonters to see this is that the governor manufactured these reasons to veto the bill.
Right.
Yep. We understand that he will no longer be in office in January, which breaks my heart. But we can, as a legislature, under a new governor and with new members, make any kind of corrections necessary in this bill. And also, as I said earlier in this, there are examples in 2016, 2014, 2014, 13, and so on, where the governor, this language has been used in numerous bills to implement temporary rules. And it's coincidental that most of these have been the Vermont Health Connect, expansion of Medicare, or Medicaid, and so on. So apparently when the rules fall into what the governor has for an agenda, he doesn't care about the language, but in this particular bill, he does. So, with that said, we have a few guests that I would like to speak today. First, I want to have Mariana Gamache, who worked diligently with Warren Van Wyk and Mike Heber, ranking member in that committee, say a few words. And then we're going to have a couple of